Another building block of the thinking environment is thinking pairs. Thinking pairs is an opportunity for two people to give and receive generative attention. And generally speaking, when we run a thinking pair exercise, we recommend a 5-minute each way turn. But of course, you can extend that to 10 minutes each way, 15, 20. What matters is that the amount of time that a person has to think is equal on both sides. So equal turns, equal time, and of course an equal quality of attention, being ways in which we represent the component of equality with one another. To do a thinking pair, you would need to find a place that was comfortable, where you weren't going to be disturbed or interrupted. And you want to set your seating up so that you're a comfortable distance apart from one another, but close enough to be able to hear each other easily, and decide who's going to think first and who's going to be what we call the thinking partner, the one who's listening first. Once you've decided that, the person who's going to think would want to set a timer for themselves to whatever the allotted amount of time is. And then the person who's the listener or thinking partner will help the thinker to get started with a question. We've already looked at how questions ignite thinking, and that the mind thinks best in the presence of a question. So in order to get started, the listener or thinking partner will ask the person who's taking their turn first, what do you want to think about? And what are your thoughts? And I often say to people, you've got a couple of choices here as to where you go in response to that question. Sometimes you come to a thinking pair already knowing what it is that you want to think about, so that question will kickstart you into thinking about it. Sometimes you could just take what comes up the minute you hear the question, the first thing that comes into your mind. And sometimes you might want to run through the different things that are on your mind and see which one jumps out at you. The important thing is, though, that once you get thinking in response to the second part of that question, what are your thoughts? Once you get thinking, that you allow yourself to go into that topic at the point that you are currently most interested, and notice and see if you can avoid the habit, the temptation to think that the first thing that you need to do is fill in the person that's listening to you with all of the background and all of the history to the topic. Because if you do that, you're going to spend your entire thinking time getting them ready to be able to listen to where you want to go next, and you're going to run out of time for where you want to go next. So as soon as your thinking partner asks you, what do you want to think about? And what are your thoughts? Give yourself permission to dive in at the place that is currently most alive and interesting for you, and go forward from there. It's unusual, but you actually don't have to give them the background, the history, or the context. And the reason for that is they're not going to reply. They're not listening to reply. They're listening to ignite your thinking. So in a slightly countercultural way, they don't actually even need to understand the history or background or context, because what they're doing there is being interested in your thinking and where it's going next. And generally speaking, if it's a 5-minute each way turn, that's all you're going to need from your thinking partner, is that question to get started. And then the fact that they are being with you, consistent with these components of a thinking environment that I've been talking about, that they're genuinely interested in where your thinking is going. They want to know what's coming next. And because they're listening to you in that way, what's coming next starts to emerge and be generated by your mind in the presence of their generative attention. And that's probably all you're going to need from them, is their ease, their interest, and their genuinely wanting you to go to the cutting edge, to the unexplored ideas that live inside this topic for you. Sometimes, however, you might experience that somewhat startling realization that you've got all the way to the end of an entire sentence and no one has interrupted you and no one's finished that sentence for you. And what I have seen happen and what I've experienced myself is that you can come to a pause and have that feeling of, gosh, so that's what it's like to actually get to the end of a sentence and be done with the whole thought. And sometimes that pause will just be replaced with another wave of thinking and you'll take off again and you'll keep going. But if you do need more encouragement from your thinking partner, you can let them know that you're done at that point and ask them for another question to get you going again. And should you need a second question to enable you to take off again on the next wave of thinking, the question that they will ask you is, what more? What more do you think, or feel, or want to say? And what we've found is that that question pretty much covers all of the different directions that your mind may want to go in, into more thinking, or into the inclusion of how you feel about this topic, because of course as soon as you've started thinking about it, how you feel about it will be present for you. So that explicit invitation and permission to be able to include your feelings is important, because avoiding how we feel about things, marginalizing our feelings and suppressing them gets in the way of our being able to think well. So what more do you think, or feel, or want to say? Because sometimes we have just come to realizations in that uninterrupted wave of thinking that we've just done that we want to hear ourselves say, declarations or realizations that we've come to. And in the event that you might need that question again, the same question, even though it's the same words, will feel different to you if you hear it again and again and again. It will keep you going each time you hear it until it doesn't anymore. And when we look at all of the things that can happen in a full-length thinking session, I'll talk more about the different questions that come once the question, what more do you think, or feel, or want to say, doesn't produce more thinking. Now, once your turn comes to an end, the timer goes off, what you'll simply do in a thinking pair is switch. And it'll be your turn to be the thinking partner, and you will get the person who's just been listening to you going in their thinking by asking them, what do you want to think about? And what are your thoughts? And keep them going with the question, what more do you think, or feel, or want to say, in the event that they need it, and ask for it. You don't have to be sitting there getting ready with that question. They'll let you know if they need it. And then the way we finish the thinking pair exercise is with the component of appreciation. So once both people have had their turn, before you end, take time to let each other know one quality that you've seen in the person that you've been listening to. One thing about them as a human being. It's not an appraisal performance. It's not connected to their topic. It's something that you've noticed in who they are as a person that you've admired or appreciated. And you'll just let them know as sincerely, obviously, and succinctly, if possible, as a way of ending off the thinking pair exercise. And that's it. That's a thinking pair.